Siegfried and Roy took Las Vegas by storm with their Magic Meets Tame Tigers act. What many fans might not realize is that the duo had a long history together, well before they hit the strip with their menagerie of exotic animals. Here's the untold truth of Siegfried and Roy. Born Siegfried Fischbacher and Uwe Ludwig Horn in World War II-era Germany, Siegfried and Roy overcame bleak childhoods to bring wonder and joy to countless kids the world over. Siegfried and Roy's fathers fought on the Russian front during World War II, and both returned home broken. In the 2008 biography of the pair, The Secret Life of Siegfried and Roy, How the Tiger Kings Tamed Las Vegas, the authors chronicle the boys' love-starved youth in post-Nazi Germany. Siegfried's father was a prisoner of war and quickly succumbed to alcoholism after peace was declared. And Roy, born in the middle of an air raid, likewise watched with dread and sadness as his father, another traumatized vet, drank himself out of a family. When Roy's mother married another man, a short period of bliss and prosperity followed, but that man also eventually became a slave to the sauce. Young Siegfried, depressed and often hungry, taught himself how to do card tricks and other illusions as a way to distract and entertain himself. There was another bonus to Siegfried's talents for sleight of hand. Performing the tricks was the only way he could command his father's sparse attention. Meanwhile, Roy was happy only in the company of his dog Hexa, who was half wolf and saved Roy's life once when Roy, an adventurous kid, found himself stuck in quicksand. Hexa ran off and alerted a nearby neighbor, Lassie style, and Roy was pulled to safety. The two boys' future seemed predestined. Siegfried would be a magician and Roy would surround himself with animals, the wilder the better. Siegfried Fischbacher and Roy Horn met on a cruise ship in 1959. Roy was working as a waiter and Siegfried as a steward. One day while on break, Roy watched amused and impressed while Siegfried performed magic tricks for a few guests and members of staff. Later, Roy approached Siegfried, asking him what would prove to be a fateful question. If you can make a rabbit and a dove disappear and reappear, can you do the same with a cheetah? Putting aside whether or not this is the best pickup line ever, it must have struck Siegfried as a bit random, until Roy explained that he had a pet cheetah named Chico in his cabin. As a lifelong animal lover, Roy had managed to smuggle Chico on board the ship in a laundry sack. Siegfried was intrigued. He and Roy began crafting a magic act that would incorporate large animals disappearing and reappearing. They took their act on the road and on the water, entertaining nightclub and cruise crowds around the world. The compensation the two performers received for their hard work wasn't much to write home about until, in the late 60s, they got a standing ovation from an audience in Monte Carlo. In the audience was a booker with Paris's famed and notoriously naughty Folies Bergère cabaret show. The booker tracked Siegfried and Roy down in Spain, and that led to a gig at Las Vegas's Tropicana in 1967. The rest, as they say, is history. Beginning in 1990, Siegfried and Roy entertained roughly 400,000 people a year at their Mirage show, generating $44 million in revenue for the casino's owner, Steve Wynn, and earning pretty nice salaries themselves.
The fact of the matter is that Siegfried and Roy for 30 years did 12 to 14 shows a week, 48 weeks a year, and filled the showroom every single night.
The animal-rich extravaganza was, according to Variety, almost always sold out. In addition to the trademark white tigers and white lions, the show involved an animatronic dragon, armies of dancers, lots of groovy music, several funny gags, Siegfried and Roy floating through burning hoops of fire, and a Rolls Royce that once belonged to Greta Garbo. Oh, and did we mention the moment Siegfried would make an entire elephant disappear? Yeah, that happened. The Siegfried and Roy Follies were basically Cirque du Soleil before Cirque du Soleil was a gleam in Canada's eye. And they attracted celebrity audiences too. The duo wowed everyone from Michael Jackson, who incidentally wrote and performed the show's theme music, to Demi Moore, whose perfume reportedly drove one tiger absolutely wild. Makes us wonder why she was allowed to get that close. The success of the show came as a surprise to many, and was quite the coup for the two poor boys from Germany's slums who could never have imagined they would one day be performing twice a day to standing room only crowds of 1,500. What's the German word for local boys make very, very good?
Gesundheit. Just kidding.
When the white tiger Manticore was born, he wasn't breathing. According to a story Siegfried and Roy shared with Las Vegas Weekly, Roy cut the tiger's umbilical cord and gave the big cat mouth-to-mouth. 7 years later, the tiger would attack Roy on stage, ending the show that made Siegfried and Roy household names and nearly killing the man who breathed life into him. The attack happened on October 3, 2003, Roy Horn's 59th birthday, during a section of the show that was known as The Rapport. A tiger trainer who would go on to accuse Siegfried and Roy of lying about Manticore's motivation told The Hollywood Reporter that, in that segment, Roy would often dance with his tigers, demonstrating the close bond he and the cats had acquired over the years. That night, though, something went wrong, and instead of demonstrating affection for Roy, Manticore sunk his teeth into Roy's neck and dragged him off stage. Roy's injuries were severe. The attack damaged an artery that carried oxygen to his brain, and it crushed his windpipe. He was left partially paralyzed. To add insult to injury, the USDA found Siegfried and Roy to be negligent in the fact that they had no precautions in place to protect the audience should an animal go rogue and leap into the crowd. When Roy was gravely injured by Manticore in 2003, Roy quickly came to the tiger's defense, claiming Manticore was only trying to help. He claimed in interviews that he was having a stroke when Manticore bit him in the neck and dragged him off stage. In Roy's telling, Manticore was trying to help Roy, and the effort backfired spectacularly. The USDA's investigation into the attack did not uncover the reason behind Manticore's out-of-character behavior, and the case seemed closed.
I got a stroke when I fell down, and I seen his blue eyes still looking at me. I thought, now what happened?
Then, in March 2019, Chris Lawrence, an animal trainer with the show, came forward with his version of events, telling The Hollywood Reporter that Roy's story was a fabrication, cooked up to protect both Manticore and the Siegfried and Roy brand. Lawrence was on stage when the attack occurred and has since publicly argued that human error is what caused the tiger to go into fight mode. Specifically, Roy's last-minute decision not to walk the tiger in circles as he planned, but corral him with his arm instead. Lawrence has also suggested Roy's relationship with Manticore had deteriorated prior to the attack, contributing to the chances that something would go terribly wrong. Whatever the reason behind Manticore's attack, the incident effectively put an end to the two showmen doing what they loved best, performing wild and gorgeous and wacky stunts for sold-out crowds in Las Vegas day after day, night after night. Both men lived for the thrill of live performance. The tiger attack nearly killed them both. In Roy's case, the danger was quite literal. Siegfried, though physically unharmed, spiraled in his personal life. He grew depressed and directionless following the shuttering of the show, telling a New York Post reporter, "The depression was more for the show because it was over without realizing it. I went through this crazy time. I went and did a lot of crazy things." Those crazy things apparently included hiking and backpacking around Europe and hanging out at a monastery for a while, none of which sounds that crazy for a man best known for making tigers disappear. Siegfried and Roy had been performing a flamboyant magic act with white tigers since the 1980s, but it wasn't until 2007 when they both came out as gay. And no one was really surprised. Their relationship was an open secret in the entertainment industry, even though they never advertised. For the purposes of maximizing their appeal and appealing to families and old ladies, their bread and butter during the Mirage years, they didn't address the topic, instead cultivating a squeaky clean image that sidestepped the subject of sexuality in general. Part of that image meant that the dancers in their show, more accustomed to Las Vegas burlesque acts than family entertainment, kept their tops on, at least for the matinees. Eventually, Siegfried and Roy's romantic connection ended and they became best friends, in addition to business partners. Their bond only grew stronger when Roy was attacked in 2003. Siegfried became Roy's caretaker. He told Barbara Walters in a televised interview that almost losing his soulmates really brought home to him how close the two had become through 44 years of touring and performing together.
Roy had these dreams, and I had the ideas. His dreams was always so big, but we made the dreams become a reality.
Roy Horn grew up surrounded by animals. When he was a boy, his mother's best friend was married to a zookeeper, and Roy spent as much time as he could among the animals. That's how he later came to own a cheetah named Chico, who had a starring role in Siegfried and Roy's first magic shows. Animals were essential to Roy's sense of self and equanimity, so when Siegfried and Roy started raking in the dough in Las Vegas, they bought a 100-acre estate outside the city and began filling it with fauna. They called the estate Little Bavaria in honor of Siegfried's home, and according to Las Vegas Weekly, it's now home to scores of horses, black swans, mini donkeys, African cranes, royal turkeys, and exotic chickens. The estate also includes a number of fountains and athletic courts and fields. Pathways connect it all, and when Roy was attacked by Manticore in 2003, Siegfried saw to it that waist-high railings were installed throughout the estate, so that Roy could continue to walk its grounds and enjoy his very own zoo. In 2011, 8 years after being dragged off stage by a 400-pound white tiger, Roy Horn faced another battle, this one in the courts. His personal assistant, Oliver Price, accused him of sexual harassment. According to the Las Vegas Sun, Price claimed that Siegfried and Roy regularly importuned him with unwanted attention, and that Horn fired him after he rejected his advances. In their defense, Siegfried and Roy accused Price of coming to work for them under false pretenses and turning on them in order to enrich himself. In his interviews with the pair, Price said that he was a skilled physical therapist. In reality, he had no such skills. And he began filming Roy without his permission, eventually sharing video with the National Enquirer, who published the salacious story Siegfried and Roy's Sex Shocker. The first judge in the case ordered Price to pay Roy $37,415 for bringing a baseless claim against Horn. But then the plot thickened when 3 other men joined the suit, claiming that they'd been abused by both Siegfried and Roy while under their employ. The case fell out of the news in 2012. Perhaps it was settled? One thing's for sure, tigers don't talk. The world-famous duo performed across decades, but on May 9, 2020, CBS News announced that Siegfried and Roy were no more. Roy had passed away the prior day at the age of 75. The official cause was complications from COVID-19. He had tested positive for the virus in April. Siegfried gave this heartfelt statement. "The world has lost one of the greats of magic, but I have lost my best friend. From the moment we met, I knew Roy and I together would change the world. There could be no Siegfried without Roy, and no Roy without Siegfried. Roy was a fighter his whole life, including during these final days." MGM Resorts, owners of the duo's longtime performance venue, The Mirage, also tweeted condolences, saying, "The world lost a legendary figure with the passing of Roy Horn. Our hearts go out to Roy's family and friends, and most notably to Siegfried, who shared a lifetime of magic and friendship with this special man." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite pop culture icons are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.